Hello, I'm Lorien. This is Knitting and episode 9. Today is Sunday, the 16th of June, and in the US it's Father's Day, so happy Father's Day to anyone who is observing today. I am coming to you from my backyard. I don't know if you'll hear any of the sounds in the background. There are presently a few birds singing, chirping away, but I thought this would be fun to change it up. I am a knitter in southwestern Connecticut, and I created this channel as a way to connect with friends on another platform. I can be found on here and on Ravelry and on Instagram as Yarn Love Turtle. If you're new, welcome. If you're coming back, thanks for coming back and welcome. And if you're not yet subscribed, please consider clicking the subscribe button. It does help YouTube show my content to people who, like you and I, are interested in what we have to talk about. So I have a couple of works. I'll tell you about what I'm wearing. I have a couple of works in progress. And I wanted to talk about a few things I'm planning this summer, and maybe you can give me some suggestions about what to do with some of the yarn I was planning to work with. So I am wearing the Trunk Island tank. It has these very cute ties that you tie in a bow. This is a pattern. I'm going to stand up and show you. Pattern designed by Beth Macdonald Stone, and I knit it several years ago. I used yarn from Flower Hill Fleeces in the Egyptian fingering, I think is what it's called. And it's a blend. I think it's a wool and linen blend. I just find it very useful. I'm tempted to knit another one. It's a contender for another summer knit. I knit it to pattern other than I did these ties as I-cords, and I believe the pattern calls to knit them as flat strands. And I pull it out every summer because I think it's pretty versatile. I do enjoy wearing some of my summer knits, and I have quite a few tank tops in that category. I am working on a couple of sweaters. Let's see, I'll show you this one first. If you watched episode 8, you've seen these before. Hopefully there's a bit more progress on them this time. Although this one is rolling. This is the back. Yeah, this is the Lorien sweater. Because it's rolling, it doesn't look like I made much progress on it this week. But it's gone a ways. It's a design by Elenor Mortensen. Colorwork yoke, colorwork at the waist, colorwork on the sleeves. I am knitting this in 2 yarns. One is by StressKnits. StressKnits is here. And that is on the favorite base. It's an 80-20 fingering in the colorway Pillow Mint. The other yarn, this fabulous like medium green, Kelly green, is by Haynes House Yarns and is called Just Leave Me Alone. It's on the Bare Feet sock base, and that's a 75-25. At this point, I just have a lot of that green to go until I get the darker green until I get to the waist. I didn't really make any modifications to the pattern. I did want to show you though that I used quite a lot of ladderback jacquard. So I'm turning this inside out so you can see my floats. I put a small amount here where the floats were pretty long, and I used quite a bit here where the floats were long in the other color. As you can see from this design, the pattern and the background colors switch midway through the motif, which is something I've seen in a couple of sweater designs that I've knit recently, the Calypso and the Calypso Worsted being one of them. And I noticed that with this too, and I just think it's part of what makes this design pretty. Of course, I had to knit it. It's it's in my name. It's not named after me, but there are very few things named Lorien, or people that I've run into. I have met a few others. I'm basically knitting this until I run out of this yarn. I have this skein and a second skein, so there is a decent chance that I will be able to make this a long sleeve sweater, but if not, I'm happy for it to be short sleeved as well. I'm not sure if I'll make it a 3/4 length. I think I actually have enough to go the distance. It's pretty close to what the pattern calls for. So hopefully some progress on that this week. I have made quite a bit of progress on my Milton sweater. This is a pattern by Locatelli, and again, I showed this on episode 8. It is a cardigan. I think this is showing better in the outdoor light, with a shawl collar that is knit on as you go, and it's a tone on tone. I'm doing this using La Bien-Aimée yarns in the Sport Nouveau base, and the other base is Little Kumo. So Little Kumo comes in a 50-gram put up. This board is in 100 grams. I thought I might only need one. I'm needing another. I was very concerned that I was going to have to pay for shipping from Paris, which can cost, unfortunately, as much as the yarn sometimes. I have done an order once, and I thought maybe I should wait until Aimee has a sale or a free shipping offer, but I've got about 15 grams left. This might get me also on the sweater, on the cardigan. I, of course, have the sleeves still to do, and I have pretty much knit half of the body length from the underarm here down. This is about 9 inches. I think I need about 17. The pattern calls for longer than that, but Hohi designs her cardigans. I have knit 2 others and love them, but they're designed for, I think, someone taller than me. I'm 5'3". Hohi is 5'7". So I'm going to shorten this to knit it to 3 inches shorter than the pattern calls for, and I feel like it's going to block out to a perfect length for me. So I can keep going. I did place an order. I found this yarn at Brooklyn General store online, and I placed my order last night. I've already seen, even on a Sunday, that they've started processing the shipping. So I might not miss a beat. I may receive it before I even run out of this, but if I do, then I'm really working between these 2 sweaters right now. The sleeves on this are a tapered, I haven't even read ahead. These little markers are holding some of the stitches from the shoulder that transition into the sleeve. Most of what is left, all that's left on the body, is really just stockinette back and forth. This little collar section has a ribbed texture, and so it's going. It's not going especially fast because, I don't know. I do know why. Because I had no time. I was busy working, and I was tired from working. More on that later. But I am really hoping that over the summer I can knit quite a bit more. This is fairly lightweight. You know, one of the selling points, this was designed in mohair instead of Surrey. I prefer Surrey, so I used this. This was a recommended alternative. It was designed in La Bien-Aimée yarn, the Sport Nouveau, and her Surrey, her mohair, lace mohair. I switched that up to the Surrey base. This is the colorway Noir, and I'm having a lovely time knitting with this yarn. The Sport is just, it's a merino. It's pretty perfect. It's just lovely, and it's also nice knitting a true black color. It is not crocking on my hands. I really feel it's worth every penny. And I know I'm going to get a lot of use out of this cardigan. So it's going to be great. The original design, though, many of the sizes only required 1 skein of that mohair. The Surrey put up is a little bit shorter. It doesn't have as many yards. And even so, I think I'm not even going to come close, but that's okay. So those are my 2 works in progress. I have some plans for summer that I wanted to share with you. Let me just look at my notes. Okay. Oh, but first, nope, we'll share plans. So first is I have this yarn, which I think I also showed in episode 8, which is Queensland Con, I think is how you say that. And I have 2 skeins. One is the color 35, the other is the color 40. And this is going to become a Market Square bag, which I love each summer to do knit or crochet a bag. This is a pattern by Sharyn Anhalt. I think it's a free pattern actually on Ravelry. And it uses, this will be my main color. I'd like to use most of this, and then I'll be using some of this too. I saw a sample of it knit at Nitty Gritty Yarn Girl, which is in Niantic, Connecticut, and I had to grab the 2 skeins. I believe it's knit on a size 8 needle, which will be absolutely delightful after knitting these 2 sweaters on a size 4. I'm gonna need a break from the fingering. I also was planning to use some yarn that I acquired at the end of last summer for a couple of summer knits. Now, however, what I thought I might knit them into, well, I don't really have a plan for this one. So I was really curious about Terrapin Fiberworks. It is plant-based fibers, and she achieves just these absolutely spectacular colors. This is the colorway Garlic. It's on the, what does she call it? Severin DK, so it's 246 yards. You might be able to see there's some gold tones, there's some pinky purple tones, and it's this creamy white color, not wholly unlike, but certainly different from what I'm wearing. The put up for DK is 100 grams, 246 yards, and I was thinking this might become some kind of tank, I believe, when I purchased it last August. This was also these were a little retail therapy, I would say. There was a sale going on as I was dropping my daughter Nora off at college, and there was just so much emotion. I soothed myself a little bit, made myself feel a little better, but these were all on sale. So I need to come up with a pattern that I can use with this DK weight yarn. It could be another tank. I think that's all I have yardage for. So I'm going to have to figure that out a bit. The other purchase that I made, it's on the arm of my chair, because I opened these up. So there was a set of 3, also from Terrapin Fiberworks. This is the Potomac DK, 75 cotton, 25 linen, 246 yards. Now, I made this, like I said, this was some retail therapy. So it was a set of 3, and I had some different ideas for this. One is this creamy color with a lot of different speckles. The next is this more medium brown with some darker brown tones. And then the third is really a darker brown skein of all the same base, really pretty colors, but yet I'm not sure how I'm going to use them together. So let me try and hold them together here. My original thought was to knit and stripe a Tolsta tee, which I have not yet done, but I did purchase the pattern for. These 2 colors, the browns, I feel like would make a lovely fade. So starting probably with one and then into the other. But I really don't think I have enough yardage alone to do that. I'm not sure how much. I have to see what this knit in. I think this was fingering, so I'd have to convert it to a DK weight. But I thought that could be really pretty to kind of fade this lighter one into the darker one, and then make a different plan for this. So if you have any suggestions, I'm still not totally giving up, and I'm not actually starting. I will not wind or cast these on until these other 2 sweaters are pretty much at the finish line. I'm just not sure. I feel like it's going to be hard to stripe these together. Like, I would have to stripe this and maybe blend these two. I'm not sure, but I very much appreciate your thoughts and ideas on this project or what I can turn these into. I think there's something in here. I just haven't figured out what it's yet to be. Okay, moving on to books. So I set a goal for myself this year to really start picking up and reading physical books again. Here's one. And I was doing great, and then I lost time again to work and knitting and re-knitting. One of the sweaters I'm working on is sort of a take two version because I wasn't happy with the colors. So this was, I think, my May book, but I did finish it last weekend. It's called The Great Divide. It's by Cristina Henriquez. It is about it's really not about. It takes place during the construction of the Panama Canal. It's a historical fiction. My town does a kind of town-wide read-along, and they get copies from the publisher and the schools. I work in our town high school, and the schools also embrace the town read-along. And so this book was it was available for free. The author was brought in and gave a speech. I got my own copy. It's called Milton Reads. And I love historical fictions. I did not love this book. I understand some friends went to the author's speech. I did not, or presentation. I really do love historical fiction. I just felt there really wasn't enough meat of the history. She researched a ton to go into this. I also felt like there were a lot of characters, and I was able to keep track of all of them. That wasn't hard for me. Some people said it was a lot of characters. But I also felt because it was so many characters, it was hard to really get into any one character deeply. It really, to me, there were a couple of characters I'd say she got into more deeply, and I feel like that was really more of what the book was about than the setting that it happened in. I think the cover is absolutely beautiful. And so I probably wouldn't read something like that again. What I am reading, I have cracked open a couple of books. So my mother gave me this book, which is called Knitting, a novel. It's by Anne Bartlett. And I believe it takes place in Australia. I believe these are Australian characters. And I've only just cracked like the first 10 pages of this one. So that is on my list. One of the books that is required reading in our high school in one of the English classes, since my children went to this high school, is still sitting on our shelves. And this is a well-known author, and my daughter read this for one of her classes, and I thought it would be worth reading. It's by David Sedaris, Me Talk Pretty One Day. And I also read like the first 10 pages of this and said, okay, I'll read this in the summer. The last book I am going to explore this summer comes from the library of the school where I work. They do a reading challenge, and each month there is a different theme. And this month, this would actually fit for me a couple of months. This is to read a book that takes place in the state where we are, Connecticut. But there's also, next month is to read a book in a genre you don't often read. So this is a biography, a genre I don't often read. And part of it takes place in Connecticut. It was also on the New York Times bestseller list. It's called The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. It's by Jeff Hobbs, who was Robert Peace's college roommate. It says, a brilliant young man who left Newark for the Ivy League. This resonated, just the title alone resonated to me quite a lot. So now I'm going to get into the end section of this episode, which is FOMO, fear of missing out. I attended Dartmouth, an Ivy League university or college. We're a college. And this weekend was our 30th reunion. I did go to our 25th, but I didn't make it this weekend. There are a whole host of reasons why. Most immediately is just that this was my first year working as a high school secretary in our main office. I support the number 2 administrator and all the administrators, because if somebody else needs help, I don't say no, and the principal. And I really love working there. But I will say, working in a high school is not easy. Granted, I'm very fortunate to live in a affluent suburb of New York City. I say that because we're an hour train ride away. A good number of people still work in New York City or work for entities in New York City. They may now work remotely. But while we are insulated, sometimes I feel like my kids grew up in a bubble. We are not fully insulated because all of the things in the world still happen in high school. And kids don't always make great choices. And there are things sometimes that are hard. They're hard and they're complicated. And I will say, I get the summer off. I work 10 months and I don't go in the summer. That's just the position that I have. So I literally was working up till pretty much the last minute of my last day, fairly intensely. And it was just a lot. So my knitting output suffered. My reading suffered. And I just could not really organize myself. I did not have the energy to organize myself to attend this reunion. Now, the FOMO part came in because all of my friends ended up going. All of my friends were texting me, "What do you mean you're not here?" And I do think that we sort of take for granted and assume that that's going to happen. And I wish that part didn't happen. I wish we did better at reaching out to one another, just because. I'm gonna read this. So one of the things that I do in addition to knitting is I teach yoga. I have been a yoga teacher for 10 years. And sometimes on my Instagram, it's not about yoga. I see something inspiring. And I found something recently that inspired me, so I thought I'd read it here. I read it in yoga class this week, which was, "Say it. Never be afraid to let someone know if they brightened the room they just walked into, or if something they said inspired you to change. Never be embarrassed to share a compliment with a stranger. And don't ever fall into the trap of believing that the people you love know that. Say it. Always say it. Your words may land a little awkwardly at first, but in the dark of the night, those seeds will plant themselves into someone's mental garden and start to bloom. Sow seeds wherever you go." That's by Donna Ashworth. She's someone I follow on Instagram also. And I could have there are a whole host of reasons, like I said, why I didn't go, but the most pressing one was just that I was exhausted. I was really depleted. And in the end, I just had to make a choice, knowing I would still have fear of missing out. And believe me, I feel like I missed out on a ton. Many of these friends had to fly in. It would have been a drive for me. And I'm sure it would have been fun. But it just wasn't right now. What does this have to do with knitting? Maybe something. I know that I will not be able to go to New York Sheep and Wool this fall. I already see my local yarn store has started a knit along. People are already talking about what the Rhinebeck sweater is going to be. I am fortunate enough to live within driving distance, about an hour and a half from the New York Sheep and Wool Fairgrounds. I am going to be out of town that entire weekend on an extended family get-together, birthday weekend. And I can't change that. I wouldn't change that. I certainly would not go. But I will be missing out. I will have FOMO. But I already know that. So I can plan ahead, for that time. I won't be able to go to any of the satellite activities either. And I'm okay with that. I have already asked my local friends, somewhat jokingly, you guys can shop for me, right? Truth is, I have plenty of yarn to knit through. And I will go to the Fiber Festival of New England, which happens in November at the Big E Fairgrounds in Springfield, Massachusetts. It's a lovely event, and many of the same vendors will be there also. So I think that missing out is one thing, but it's also the piece of not holding back when you want to say something, when you feel something, when you want to connect with someone. It's really important to just do that and not keep score. Not say, I'm always the one who reaches out. I'm always the one who makes the phone call. Like, if you have feelings, if you have words, sometimes it's just worth being the one to set up the coffee date, to set up the time to meet up, to call the girls' night, to make dinner plans. Some of my friends who went live close by, and there's no reason that we don't see each other other than our lives get busy, and it shouldn't take a 3.5-hour drive out of state for us to make that time and say those words and do those things. So more of that is what I say. More of saying it, putting it out there. That good stuff. All right. I feel like I've gotten super philosophical this time on the end part of this recording, but I think it's important. And I read this also today. We never have as much time as we do today. And that really kind of struck me as something to consider and think about. So, all right, which means there's plenty of time now to get knitting. All right, it was good to catch up with you. Please feel free to subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know if anything struck a chord with you, what you're working on. It's really a platform to connect. And I'll see you next time. Take care.